Hello everyone, students, myself Mrs. Hansa Pawar from New Catholic Mission School Chabua, and I welcome you all in the class of economics again. So students, if you have seen the previous video of chapter 2nd, as we are continuing the same chapter today also, this is part 2nd of chapter 2nd, okay. Part 1 which we have finished earlier. Now today we are going to finish the chapter 2nd also, that is Indian economy since 1950 to 1990. This chapter, and this is part 2 of the chapter 2nd. Now these are the contents which we are going to finish today, that is green revolution, industrial development, foreign trade, critical appraisal of industrial development since 1950 to 1990. Okay, so first we will start with green revolution. Of course, this particular word you have heard many times. Green revolution means it's kind of technology which is used in the farming or in agriculture sector for the purpose of increasing the production per acre, okay, or for increasing the yield or production. So when we say green revolution, of course it actually depends on agriculture, or it is actually related to agriculture only. So it can be called as agricultural revolution in India also. At the time of independence, we can see that nearly 75% of total country's population was depending only on agriculture. But there were certain drawbacks also, that is the farmers do not have any knowledge about the use of fertilizers, manures and so on, and outdated technology were used during that time in agriculture. India's agriculture was mainly depending on the monsoon, that is the amount of the rainfall. If the rainfall is moderate or it is low, then they cannot enjoy a good harvest, okay. Production was less in comparison, whereas when the monsoon is good or when they are enjoying a good rainfall, then they can have more production or more yield could be possible. So these were some of the troubles or problems which farmers were facing that time. Because of this, the productivity was very low, and that too we were using all old or outdated technology. And because of this, and of course one more thing, that was absence of infrastructure. When we say infrastructure means there were no reliable irrigation facilities or permanent irrigation facilities available with the farmers, no equipments, tools for doing proper farming, okay. So because of all this, the productivity was very low. As a result of the continuous efforts of our agricultural scientists, they have started with this green revolution technology, which was actually very helpful in agriculture. Now what is green revolution? When the farmers are given the high yielding variety seeds. High yielding variety seeds, that means it's not a common or ordinary seeds. Because of these seeds, when they sow this into the land, they can have more and more production. So green revolution refers to large increase in production of food grains due to the use of high yielding variety seeds. These seeds were called as wonder seeds also. Why? Because of these seeds only, the agriculture per acre is going to increase, and to incredible heights also. To derive benefit from these high yielding variety seeds, there was one important thing, that proper reliable or irrigation facilities must be available. Without adequate rainfall or without adequate irrigation facilities, these seeds cannot give more production, okay. So it was the necessary things. Then it requires heavy doses of chemical fertilizers also along with adequate irrigation facilities. So if it lacks both of them, then the seeds could not have a better results or production could not be more. But there are, if it has got certain advantages, that is the technology of green revolution, it has certain good effects as well as bad effects. So first we will go with the advantages which the green revolution technology has brought. So the technology of green revolution enabled India to achieve main thing, that is self-sufficiency in terms of the production of food grains. And the first point which shows that attaining marketable surplus. When we say attaining means achieving, surplus means the leftover part, okay. So we have actually attained or achieved the marketable surplus, that is besides the consumption of their own families, the farmers could actually save some amount of food grains which they can use to sell into the market. So marketable supply refers to that part of agricultural produce which is actually sold in the market by the farmers after meeting their own family consumption's need. and a large proportion of rice, especially large proportion of rice and wheat was produced during this period to supply or to sell it into the market, and they can enjoy a good harvest or they can enjoy a good profit also. So this was advantage for the farmers. Then buffer stock of food grains. When we say buffer stock means actually it is kept with the government. So at the time of shortage of food in the country or at the time of natural calamities when it happens, this buffer stock could be used during that time, at the time of shortage of food. So buffer stock can be used for food grains. The Green Revolution enabled the government to procure sufficient amount of food grains to build a stock which could be used at the time of the necessity of food or at the time of food shortage. So it was also a good thing. Third was benefit to low income group. Now here low income group means all those people or all those group of people who are actually consisted of a small income group or a lower income group or poor section of the society or a weaker section of the society. They could enjoy a good purchasing facilities. Why? Because when the production was more due to Green Revolution, the supply was increased in the market, and as a commerce student you know that when the supply is more in the market, more than necessity or more than requirement, the prices is going to fall. Same thing happened here. As the grains or the large proportion of food grain was sold by the farmers in the market, it was made available, their prices actually decline or decrease. When the prices decline, it is in comparison to other goods. Now the lower income group people or weaker section of the society, for them who spends a large portion of their income on only purchasing the food grains, for them it was very beneficial, for them it was very helpful that they can get or they can purchase the food grains at a very cheaper rate or a lower rate in the market. Now there are certain risks also involved with this Green Revolution. Besides the advantages, there were certain risks also. And while the nation had immensely benefited from the Green Revolution, that is the technology, but it was not free from risk. The first risk which was attached with them, that was a pest attack. When we say pest means it's kind of insects which is actually in the plants, and if it happens then the crops will be destroyed fully. The farmers could not enjoy a good harvest. So the high yielding variety crops were more prone or were more attached to attack by pest. The small farmers who adopted this technology, they can lose everything, that is they can lose the harvest, they cannot enjoy a good production or good harvest because of this pest attack, which is actually done only in the case of the high yielding variety of seeds. So this was one of the drawbacks. Second was risk of increase in income inequalities. When we say increase in income inequalities between lower class group and higher class groups. So Green Revolution will increase the disparities or differences between the small and the big farmers, as the inputs which are used in Green Revolution in terms of the high yielding variety seeds, fertilizers which are required for high yielding variety facilities, seeds, and even the reliable irrigation facilities, these all things were very costly for the poor farmers. A poor farmer cannot afford high yielding variety seeds. Why? Because it requires two major things, that is proper irrigation facilities, and that time all the farmers were depending on the rainfall only, especially the poor farmers. So they cannot access the irrigation facilities, they cannot even access the chemical fertilizers also. So because of that, it does not help the lower income group people or the farmers, small farmers. It was not beneficial for them. It was only beneficial for the big farmers who can afford these seeds. However, due to these favorable steps taken by the government, these fears, risk of pest attack and risk of increase in income inequalities, did not come true. As a result, the Green Revolution was basically a good technology which is benefited to small as well as the big farmers both, that is poor as well as rich farmers both. Now third is subsidies to agriculture. That means in this Green Revolution technology, government is also taking an initiative to provide subsidies to the agriculture. When we say subsidies in agriculture means the farmers get input at prices lower than the market prices. When we say farmers gets input, here inputs means the equipments, the things which they are using, the tools, the seeds, the manures, the fertilizers which actually farmers require for doing the farming. So all these things he can get, or all these inputs he can get from or through government at a very lower prices, lower than the market prices. So during the initial phase of green revolution, this new technology was looked upon as being very risky. Why? Because it requires two major things, that is reliable irrigation facilities and use of chemical fertilizers. But it was necessary to grant subsidies, that is the lower income group or the poor or small farmers requires to get, it was a necessity that they should be grant some subsidies or some amount of money for purchasing these things, that is high yielding variety seeds, availability of chemical fertilizer and proper irrigation facilities. So they require the help from the government. Here government gave them or grant them subsidies for adoption of the new technology. And what was the new technology? Green revolution. So, but some economists were in favor of this green revolution, but some were against this. Some of the economists was of the opinion that the majority of the farmers were poor, that is some was of the view that the majority of the farmers were very poor and eliminating subsidies will increase the income inequality. That means if we will eliminate the subsidies, that means if government will not provide them any grant or any incentive or any subsidies, then there will be income inequality between rich and the poor farmers. There will be a gap or disparities or differences between small and big farmers. Some said that subsidies do not benefit. Then some economists was of the view that these green revolution or this technology is not actually helping the target group. Which was the target group? The small and poor farmers or marginal farmers. But it is actually not helping them, but it is going to fertilizer industries and prosperous farmer. That means this technology or the benefits of technology is actually gained by the fertilizer industries and with the prosperous and rich farmers. They are taking the advantage of it, and it puts a huge burden on the government's finance. That means it is actually putting more and more cost and more expenses or finance with the government rather than helping to the poor farmers. Now, after agriculture, it is industrial development which we are going to study. Now, what was the condition of industries? At the time of independence, it was very backward, stagnant, no such development was there. But at the time of independence, the industries were very limited also. They were very limited means very limited industries we have, only cottage industries. Cotton, textile and jute industries were mostly developed in India. Why? Because they are in great demand in the international market. So, we were focusing only on increasing or developing the cotton and jute industries. These were only two managed, that means there were only actually two large scale industries available, that is iron and steel industries, and it was basically Tatas and Birlas who took the initiative of starting this iron and steel industries, and one in Jamshedpur and the other was in Kolkata only. So there was a strong need to expand the variety of different kind of industries where we can manufacture different kind of consumer goods besides iron and steel or besides other goods. Okay. So there was a high need of more and more industries in the country. Now here government again took initiative. That time private entrepreneurs were not there. As I said, only two private entrepreneurs were there, Tata and Birlas. Okay, so other than that it was not available. So it was public sector or government sector who is taking more initiative in the development of industries. There was a need for a leading role of public sector or government due to the following reasons. The first is shortage of capital with private sector. That means the private sector is having shortage of capital that time because privatization was not done. Private entrepreneurs were not there and they do not have enough investment or capital to put into the industries. So there was a shortage of capital with the private entrepreneurs or sector. During the time of independence, there were only two private entrepreneurs, as I said, Tata and Birla. So government had to make investment in various other industries. They need to encourage more and more private entrepreneurs, okay, in the field of industries, and they can do so by opening or undertaking the public sector undertakings. That is all those industries which are fully owned and controlled in the hands of government. Second is lack of incentive for private sector. There were this was the lacking part, that private sector was not encouraged well, was not given any incentive. So the Indian market was not big enough to encourage the private industries. That time market was very small, and people were not actually encouraging, or the strategies of market which were not encouraging more and more private individuals to enter into the market. And if they had major private individuals, if they are interested but they are lacking with capital, they do not have any money to invest in that. So due to the limited size of the market, there was low level of demand for the industrial goods. That means there was actually no demand for the industrial made goods or manufactured goods. Third was objective of social welfare. That means public sector or government sector is also taking care of that they need to provide welfare to the society in terms of production of more and more goods and services. If they are producing more and more goods and services or more goods and services are supplied in the market, it can actually raise the standard of living of the people. So they need to look forward to this. The objective of equity, that is equality and social welfare of the government, could be achieved only through direct participation of the state in the process of industrialization. That means each and every state should actually participate or should take initiative or give incentive in industrialization. Then only this objective could be achieved of social welfare. That is, regional disparities will be reduced. Each and every state will get chances to develop themselves in terms of industrialization. Now, because of this, the Economic Planning Commission has made certain set of economic plans, that is the 5-year plans, which started in the year 1950 by the Economic Planning Commission. The first 5-year plan was from 1951 to 56, and after that the Industrial Policy Resolution, which actually started in 1956, because previously the first Economic Planning Commission has set one industrial policy in the year 1948, but it was totally a failure. It could not help much for the development of the society. So industrial policy is a comprehensive package of policy measures which covers various issues connected with different industrial aspects or enterprises of the country. After the industrial policy 1948, as I said, which was a complete failure, they had to face a serious economic and political pressure also, and there were so many changes happen, and because of that this need arises for the second industrial policy, and it was happened in 1956. According to the new policy, the industries were actually reclassified into 3 categories, that is Schedule A, Schedule B and Schedule C. Accordingly, some industries were placed or were there in Schedule A, then Schedule B and Schedule C. The first schedule, first category, which should be owned totally by the state. It is in the hands of state. That means the ownership and control is in the hands of state only, state government. Schedule B, the state would take the initiative again, but private sector is also coming, or private sector is also included or involved in that. The third schedule, that is Schedule C, the schedule consisted of the remaining industries. All the remaining industries were here in Schedule C, which were to be taken care only by private sector, that is by private individuals or private entrepreneurs only. This, along with that, industrial resolution or this policy has also provided the licensing system. An industrial license is a written permission from the government to an industrial unit to manufacture goods. That is, it is because of the permission, the written permission, that is a license, when and private entrepreneurs get this, he can actually start or engage himself in manufacturing of goods and services. So government issued the license for setting up of these industries for the expansion of the existing industries, all those industries which could not develop. So for the expansion or for the development, further development of these industries, the license was provided. And of course, the third thing was for the diversification of products. When we say diversification, means the product can be diversified, can be modified the way it was, okay. So for the development or for increasing the standard of living of the people, the product could be made of superior quality. So because of all these 3 things, again this industrial policy or resolution was revised. The licensing policy was framed with a purpose to promote regional equality. As I said earlier, regional equality means There are various regions, each and every region should grow equally, okay, should develop themselves in terms of industrial sector. So, to bring regional equality, this particular licensing system was made or developed. The industrial unit in the backward area were given certain, and along with that, even in the backward areas which were not so far developed because of industries, now these areas was also getting the chance to develop. Like the infrastructure was developed. When industries are made, you need to have roads, railways, transportation, communication. Infrastructural development of that backward area was possible. So, it was the initiation of the government only, that they provided concessions to these small private individuals, such as they were given benefits in tax, that is tax reduction, electricity they were getting at a very lower prices, and so many other advantages they were getting. And because of that, it was possible that industrial development could be done in backward area also. Now after that, one more initiation was done by government, that was SSI, that is small scale industries. It was only large scale industries, but now this concept of small scale industries was generally begin or started for various kinds of manufacturing of consumer goods. And because of this, the small businessmen can also get a chance to develop themselves. So the need for SSI or small scale industries was recognized in the year 1955 by the Committee to Promote Rural Development. That means basically for the rural development or for the development of the backward area, this concept was initiated. This SSI are more labor intensive, that means they are using more of labor, manual work is done rather than using machines or equipments. Therefore, they generate more employment opportunities, that is the requirement of labor was increased. Now more and more people can get the employment, all those people who are unemployed. So it was generating employment opportunities, which was good for the nation, and it cannot but one more drawback was there, it cannot compete with the competitive firms or with big industrial firms or houses. So government took some steps for the growth of this SSI also, and what they did is government reserved production of some products for SSI only. That means some products were actually reserved with SSI only, that is small scale industries. They are going to produce these goods only. It will not be produced by the large scale industries. Along with this, they have provided certain concessions to all these small private individuals, such as lower excise duty and availability of bank loans at a very low interest rate. So these are all our facilities which were actually provided to small businessmen just for the sake of the development of the backward areas or the rural areas. Now next is foreign trade. What was the condition of foreign trade? When we say foreign trade, means international trade. It includes all import and exports to and from India. So India started with the era of 5-year plannings. Okay. So they followed this strategy with one more policy, that was import substitution policy. When we say substitute, means a similar kind of thing. Okay. So import substitution policy basically refers to a policy of replacement or substitution of imports which was done by us, import by domestic production. Now here it means, in order to become self-reliant in the production of certain category of goods. Previously we were depending only on foreign countries for these imports. Now when we wanted to become self-reliant, it means that India had reduced its dependence on the imports from foreign country. Rather, they have tried well for the making or for the manufacturing of these goods which we used to import in our nation only, that is in our domestic industries only. So instead the domestic industries would be encouraged to produce them in India only. So by this we can become self-reliant. The basic aim of this policy is to protect the domestic industries from foreign competition. That means the main aim or objective behind is to save our domestic industries from foreign competition. Even then it would be savings of the precious. That means if we are not depending more on foreign trade, we could actually save some foreign exchange also, which we can utilize this money or this amount in developing our own nation or in developing our own domestic trade. Now the last topic is critical appraisal of the industrial development between 1950 to 1990. Now critical appraisal here means we try to analyze all sort of aspects, whether this industrial development or whether this time period was good for us, or what were certain criticisms given or laid down by various people. So the achievements of India's industrial sector during the first 7-year plans, that is between the year 1950 to 1990, at least 7 5-year plans were made. Now what was the achievement or which can be seen in our nation, the proportion of GDP, that is gross domestic product, contributed by the industrial sector increase in the period like 1950 to 1990 from 11.8% to 24.6%. Nearly this much rise or this much increase was there in the total proportion of gross domestic product. It was a good sign or a good indicator for the economic development. This rise is an important indicator of economic development. Now second was the industrial sector became well diversified by 1990. Diversified means we are actually engaged in various kinds of industries or various kinds of products were made, largely due to the initiation or initiative by public or government sector. As government sector has trying to help, or as government sector has initiated the things, it was actually made possible. And Indian industry is not restricted to cotton. Now we are not restricted to only cotton and jute, but besides that we have included some other engineering goods also in these categories, and a wide range of consumer goods which we are going to make. The promotion of SSI gave opportunity to people with small savings or small investment. They also started the industries, and it could actually generate more and more employment opportunities. Okay, now next is import substitution policy. This import substitution policy actually gave protection from foreign competition also. Because of this, as we become self-reliant, it was a protection which is provided from the foreign industries and which enabled the development of our domestic industries. Now our domestic industries could also able to produce certain consumer goods which are of better quality, which are actually stands with the imported quality of goods. So this protection had, but this particular protection had two drawbacks also. That the policy was inward looking, that means this import substitution policy was focusing only on domestic industries. It was basically inward looking and lacks competition, and because of which our products which were made in domestic industries, it lacks competition with the foreign industries made goods or foreign goods. Okay. So in terms of quality, basically, as our domestic producers fail to improve the quality aspects of our domestic goods which were produced by them, so the domestic goods fail to attract the international or foreign customers. That means the foreign international market or international or foreign market, they did not demanded our product. Why? Because our products was not of better or superior quality which they need or accordingly require. Now fifth was appraisal was licensing policy. That means what was the effect of this licensing policy, which the licensing policy, as we have understood in the previous slides, that this licensing policy actually was a initiation by the government only, just to improve the small industries for the backward area. They wanted to develop those areas. So it helped the government to monitor and control the industrial production because of this licensing policy. But excessive regulation by the government because of this policy by the government was actually misused by the big industries or in big industrial houses, as some industrial houses get or some industrialists get license not for the purpose of manufacturing more and more goods, but for the purpose to prevent the competitors in the market. And another drawback was that the licensing procedure was very time consuming. So these were some of the drawbacks of the industrial development or policies. The sixth was public sector. Now when we say public sector, means all the public sector undertakings. It made a remarkable contribution by creating a strong industrial base, developing infrastructure. Why? Because of public sector undertakings only, they could actually develop the backward area, the rural area, infrastructure was developed, and they promote the backward areas also. But however, the public sector continued to monopolize in certain non-essential areas. With this advantage, what they did, they tried to dominate the areas which are not required by them. It was actually required by the private individuals to take part, or which could be better handled by the private sector. As a result, the public sector was criticized by many scholars. That means those goods which can be better produced by private sector, now public sector is involving in that, public sector is taking those or making those goods possible, but it lacks the quality. Okay. So, as a result, the public sector was criticized by many scholars and also incurred heavy losses. Why? Because demand was not raised in the market for these products which were made by public sector undertakings. So, some scholar was of the view that the public sector was not meant for earning profit, but actually it is meant to promote the welfare in the society, welfare development in the backward areas. Now, the need for the new economic, again there was a high need to raise or to make a new economic policy, and this new economic policy was again started in the year 1991. Why? Because the industrial policy 1956 was a total failure. So, to make our economy more efficient, a new economic policy was initiated in the year 1991. Now, here actually students, we have finished chapter 2nd. This was part 2nd of chapter 2nd. Now, in the next video we will start with the next chapter. Till then, keep learning, go through all the videos and enjoy. Thank you.